There is a single mistake so quiet, so subtle, that it slips into people's lives without them even noticing. It's not betrayal, it's not dishonesty, it's not even neglect. It's something deeper, something far more dangerous because it hides in plain sight. And it is this: taking people for granted. Think about it. At the beginning of every great relationship, whether it's romantic, between friends, or even family, there's energy, there's attention, there's gratitude. We notice the little things. We say thank you. We show appreciation. We give our time. But slowly, almost without realizing it, we stop. We assume the other person will always be there. We assume they will always understand. And in that assumption, we make the single mistake that destroys more relationships than anything else. We stop appreciating and we start expecting. Taking people for granted is one of the most silent yet destructive forces in any relationship. It doesn't scream, it doesn't make noise, and it rarely announces itself in obvious ways. Instead, it creeps in quietly, day after day, through little habits, small omissions, and unnoticed assumptions. At the beginning of a relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or within family, we are highly attentive. We notice every detail, we express gratitude often, and we value the other person's presence. We treat their efforts as special because they feel like gifts. But as time passes, familiarity settles in. The things that once seemed extraordinary begin to feel ordinary, and what we once celebrated we start to expect. The daily good mornings, the meals prepared, the sacrifices made, the listening ear offered, all of it starts to blend into the background of routine life, and instead of being grateful, we begin to assume. That assumption is the moment we start to take someone for granted. The danger lies in how invisible this process feels. Nobody wakes up one day and decides, I'm going to devalue this person. It happens subtly. You get used to the text messages, so you stop replying with the same enthusiasm. You get used to the support, so you stop saying thank you. You get used to their presence, so you stop making an effort to show yours. Before long, the relationship shifts from a place of shared joy to a place of silent expectations. The tragedy is that the person giving their love, effort, and presence begins to feel unnoticed. They begin to question their worth in your life because what was once cherished now feels taken as a given. This mistake is not always intentional, but its effects are deep. When someone feels taken for granted, they slowly withdraw. They may still be physically present, but emotionally, they begin to distance themselves. They stop sharing as much. They stop putting in the same effort, and over time, the bond that once felt unshakable starts to weaken. The saddest part is that the person doing the taking for granted often doesn't notice until it's too late. By then, the warmth has faded, and the relationship feels like a hollow shell of what it once was. Taking people for granted also breeds entitlement. You stop seeing their effort as a gift and begin to view it as an obligation. Instead of thank you for doing this, the mindset becomes, of course you should do this. That shift in perspective is poisonous. It replaces gratitude with expectation and turns acts of love into duties. No relationship can thrive when one person feels like their contributions are no longer appreciated. Love cannot survive long-term in an environment where it is treated as automatic or guaranteed. It is important to recognize that this mistake can happen in any type of relationship. In friendships, it might look like always relying on one person to reach out, plan, or listen without ever returning the same energy. In families, it might look like never acknowledging the sacrifices parents, siblings, or children make for one another. In romantic partnerships, it might look like failing to notice the small acts of love that keep the relationship alive. Across all these contexts, the core problem is the same. The moment you stop actively appreciating, you start unconsciously devaluing. The danger of taking people for granted is not that it destroys relationships overnight, but that it erodes them slowly. It chips away at the foundation little by little until one day the structure collapses. The one who is always there may finally decide to step away, not because they stopped caring, but because they grew tired of feeling invisible. And at that moment, regret often floods in because it becomes clear that the relationship was lost not through betrayal or conflict, but through neglect disguised as comfort. Appreciation is the oxygen of relationships because it keeps the bond alive, fresh, and meaningful. Just like the body cannot survive without breath, no relationship can thrive without the presence of gratitude. When people feel valued, when their efforts are noticed, when their presence is acknowledged, they are inspired to give more of themselves. It creates a cycle of positivity where appreciation fuels love, and love fuels deeper appreciation. But when gratitude fades, the connection begins to suffocate. What was once full of life starts to feel heavy, and the natural joy of being together is replaced with a sense of obligation or emptiness. Think about the way we treat something new. When someone enters our life, we notice the details, we admire their kindness, we celebrate their efforts, and we express thanks for even the smallest gestures. Over time, as those gestures repeat, they can feel less special, not because they lost value, but because we stopped appreciating them with the same intensity. This is where many relationships begin to suffer. Acts of love and sacrifice, no matter how consistent, lose their power if they are met with silence. A partner who cooks dinner every night, a friend who always checks in, a parent who continues to support, all these efforts require recognition to stay alive. Without it, the giver starts to wonder if their love is being seen at all. Appreciation has a transformative power. A simple thank you or I notice what you did can turn an ordinary moment into something extraordinary. It can take a routine task and remind the giver that their contribution has meaning. In contrast, the absence of appreciation drains energy. Imagine working hard on something and receiving no acknowledgement. At first, you may tell yourself it doesn't matter, but over time, the lack of recognition wears you down. You feel unimportant and your motivation begins to fade. The same dynamic happens in relationships. Without appreciation, love loses its spark because people need to feel that their effort matters. Gratitude is not only about words, but also about actions. It shows up in the way you listen when someone speaks, the way you look them in the eye when they share, the way you take a moment to celebrate their presence instead of letting them blend into the background of routine. It's about remembering that nothing is owed, and everything someone does for you is a choice. When you see every act as a gift instead of a requirement, you naturally treat the people in your life with more kindness and respect. That perspective builds trust and closeness because both sides feel seen. Appreciation also has the ability to heal. Mistakes and conflicts are inevitable in any relationship, but gratitude softens the edges. When you consistently recognize what someone does right, it makes it easier to forgive what they do wrong. A relationship built on appreciation is resilient because both people know their value is recognized beyond their flaws. Without this, every mistake feels heavier, every conflict feels harder to overcome, because there is no foundation of gratitude to fall back on. The truth is that appreciation must be practiced daily. It's not enough to express it once in a while or only during special occasions. Just like oxygen, it must be constant. You don't breathe deeply once and then stop expecting to survive. You breathe continuously to stay alive. The same principle applies to relationships. Gratitude must flow regularly, in words, in actions, in presence. It doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be consistent. A small, genuine acknowledgement often matters more than a dramatic gesture done rarely. When appreciation is missing, relationships suffocate slowly. When it is present, they flourish naturally. It is not luxury, it is survival. It is the reminder that love is not invisible, that effort is not wasted, and that presence is not overlooked. It is the fuel that turns everyday moments into meaningful ones and keeps the bond alive even through challenges. Presence matters more than grand gestures because it is the foundation on which true connection is built. In a world filled with distractions, divided attention, and constant noise, the rarest and most valuable gift you can give to another person is your full presence. Grand gestures can create memorable moments, but they are fleeting. Presence, on the other hand, sustains a relationship daily. It is not about how much money you spend, how dramatic your actions are, or how loudly you declare your love. It is about showing up consistently, mentally and emotionally, in the quiet everyday moments where connection truly lives. Think about the difference between a partner who buys flowers once in a while but never listens attentively when you speak, and a partner who may not shower you with gifts but looks you in the eye, remembers the details of your words, and makes you feel understood. Which one creates deeper trust and love? Presence communicates something that no material gift can. That you matter, that your words have weight, that your emotions deserve attention. Presence says, I see you, I hear you, and I value this moment with you. That message builds bonds that last far beyond the excitement of a grand gesture. Many relationships falter not because of a lack of effort, but because of misplaced effort. People assume that love can be proven through occasional big actions like planning a surprise trip or giving an expensive present. While those things can be wonderful, they cannot replace the daily act of simply being there. What people crave most is not extravagance, It is consistency. A partner who sits with you at the end of a hard day, a friend who listens without judgment, a parent who spends time instead of just money. These are the things that strengthen relationships at their core. Presence turns ordinary days into moments of connection that accumulate into a strong foundation over time. The absence of presence, however, creates distance, even when two people are physically close. You can sit next to someone on the couch, but be completely disconnected if your mind is buried in a phone or your thoughts are elsewhere. Over time, that lack of engagement communicates indifference. It tells the other person they are less important than the distraction. And while many people excuse this by saying, "I'm just busy," or "I'm tired," the truth is that the smallest acts of presence, a genuine conversation, a moment of eye contact, undivided attention, speak louder than any excuse. Without them, relationships slowly lose their sense of closeness. Presence also builds trust. When you show up consistently, others learn that they can rely on you, not just for big events, but for the ordinary flow of life. Trust is not built in dramatic moments, but in the repeated evidence that you will be there when it matters most. It comes from answering the phone when a friend calls, from listening with patience, from remembering details they once shared, from making space in your day for them. These are not glamorous actions, but they are the ones that matter. Grand gestures may be remembered, but presence is felt. Presence lingers in the heart long after the flowers die or the expensive gift is forgotten. It is in the shared silence that feels comfortable, the laughter over something small, the way you pay attention to what others often overlook. When someone knows you are truly with them, not just physically, but emotionally, they feel safe, valued, and loved. This feeling cannot be bought, staged, or faked. It only comes from the daily decision to put your attention where it matters most. When you strip relationships down to their essence, what people really want is to be seen, heard, and valued. Presence is the answer to that need. Without it, even the grandest gestures fall flat. With it, even the simplest moments shine. Assumptions kill connections because they create invisible gaps between people that widen over time. At the start of a relationship, effort is intentional. Words of love are spoken openly, gratitude is expressed often, and reassurance is given freely. But as the relationship continues, many people begin to believe that actions are no longer necessary because the other person already knows. They assume their partner knows they are loved, their friend knows they are valued, or their family knows they are appreciated. The problem with this thinking is that love is not sustained by silent assumptions. It thrives on expression. When you replace deliberate actions with unspoken beliefs, you leave room for doubt, insecurity, and disconnection. Imagine someone who works hard every day, silently believing their partner understands why they are distant. They assume their sacrifices are obvious and their love is implied. Meanwhile, their partner is left feeling invisible because the words and actions that once communicated love have disappeared. That partner may begin to wonder if the feelings have changed, not realizing that love is still there but hidden behind assumptions. This is how relationships crumble quietly. The love is not absent, but its expression is, and without expression, connection cannot survive. Assumptions are dangerous because they silence communication. Instead of asking, "How are you feeling?" we assume we already know. Instead of clarifying intentions, we assume the other person understands. Instead of speaking gratitude, we assume our appreciation is obvious. But no matter how close two people are, no one can read minds. The lack of communication builds walls, and those walls eventually turn into distance. Over time, the relationship feels emptier, not because love has vanished, but because it has not been shown. Another consequence of assumptions is resentment. When you assume someone knows how you feel, you stop expressing it. When you assume they will always be there, you stop appreciating them. When you assume they understand your needs, you stop articulating them. Meanwhile, the other person may assume the same about you. Both sides feel unseen and unheard, but neither realizes the silence is mutual. Resentment grows in that silence, each person believing the other has stopped caring, when in reality, both are just trapped in the cycle of assumption. Relationships require intentional affirmation. People need to hear they are loved, valued, and important. They need to see actions that reinforce words. Without those affirmations, even the strongest bonds weaken. Assumptions rob relationships of the chance to grow deeper because they replace curiosity with certainty. Instead of asking questions and learning about each other continually, assumptions create a false sense of knowing. That false sense leads to stagnation. You stop exploring who the other person is becoming because you assume you already know them fully. In truth, people evolve every day, and only through intentional communication can you keep up with those changes. Consider friendships as an example. You may assume a friend knows how much you value them, so you stop saying it. You assume they know you care, so you don't reach out. Meanwhile, they assume your silence means you've moved on. Eventually, the friendship fades, not because either person wanted it to end, but because both relied on assumptions instead of action. The same principle applies to family members who sacrifice silently, hoping their effort is noticed, while others assume their presence is guaranteed and never acknowledge it. Breaking the cycle of assumption requires effort. It means choosing to express love even when you think it's obvious. It means asking questions even when you think you know the answer. It means showing appreciation even for things that happen every day. This effort may seem small, but it prevents the silent erosion that assumptions cause. It turns doubt into certainty, distance into closeness, and silence into connection. Relationships thrive on daily effort because consistency is the truest demonstration of care. It is not the occasional dramatic display of affection that holds two people together, but the steady, everyday actions that communicate love and respect. Grand gestures may spark excitement, but daily effort builds trust. It is in the small choices repeated over time, choosing to listen, choosing to check in, choosing to show gratitude, that relationships grow stronger. Without this regular investment, even the deepest bonds weaken because love without effort eventually feels like emptiness. Consistency gives relationships stability. When someone shows up for you every day, not only in words but in actions, it creates a sense of safety. You don't have to wonder if they care, you know it through their behavior. This is what allows people to open up, to be vulnerable, and to trust. Without consistency, however, uncertainty begins to creep in. If love is expressed only once in a while, it leaves the other person questioning whether it is genuine. Uncertainty then turns into doubt, and doubt eventually erodes the foundation of connection. Daily effort prevents this cycle by reminding the other person over and over that they matter. Daily effort also proves commitment in the face of imperfection. No relationship is flawless. Conflicts, misunderstandings, and disappointments are inevitable. What keeps people together is not avoiding these struggles, but working through them with patience and persistence. When you show up, even on the difficult days, you demonstrate that the relationship is worth the effort. It communicates that you are invested not only when things are easy, but also when they are challenging. That willingness to stay present, to keep trying, to keep appreciating, builds a bond that is resilient against time and trials. Another reason daily effort matters is that it prevents complacency. When people stop putting in effort, relationships fall into autopilot. Conversations become shallow, time together loses meaning, and gratitude fades. It is not that love disappears, but that it becomes buried under routine and neglect. Daily effort breaks this pattern by keeping the relationship alive with intentional acts. A thoughtful question, a genuine compliment, a small gesture of kindness, these are the sparks that keep love visible. They may seem minor, but they add up to something powerful because they show ongoing dedication. In friendships, daily effort may look like sending a quick message to check in, remembering details about their life, or being there consistently when they need support. In families, it may look like making time to share meals, acknowledging sacrifices, or offering encouragement. In romantic partnerships, it may look like listening deeply, expressing affection, and creating space for connection despite busy schedules. Across every type of relationship, the principle is the same. Effort repeated consistently communicates value in a way that no one-time action ever could. The absence of daily effort, on the other hand, creates distance. Even if you love someone deeply, if your actions don't show it regularly, they may begin to feel forgotten or unimportant. Over time, this absence breeds resentment. People don't want to feel like they are begging for attention or appreciation. They want to feel it naturally through the rhythm of everyday care. When effort is missing, love begins to feel one-sided, and no relationship can remain healthy under that weight. What makes daily effort so impactful is that it doesn't require extravagance. It doesn't mean doing something big every day. It means doing something intentional. It could be as simple as listening without distractions, offering a word of gratitude, or making space for meaningful conversation. These small actions carry more weight than rare, grand gestures because they are reliable. They send the message that love is not just a feeling, but a daily choice. The truth is that relationships are living things. Just like plants need water and sunlight regularly to grow, relationships need effort and attention consistently to thrive. Love may be the seed, but daily effort is the nourishment that allows it to bloom. Without that nourishment, the bond slowly weakens, not from lack of love, but from lack of care.